Good morning and welcome to the Steel Guys April 29th, 2026 edition of the Steel Guys, which we're here to facilitate a conversation around the supply chain of metals. We've got a little outline we've got to go through. We've got a pre-show notes that we've kind of accumulated, and we're going to talk about that. I'll go over that here in a minute, the agenda. In the meantime, we are broadcasting live on YouTube and LinkedIn. And when I bring Scott in, I'll double check the sound there because we've had some issues over the past couple of events. But I'll double check that as soon as I bring Scott in here to say hello. Good morning, Scott Glenn.
Good morning to you and to everyone else. Happy 29th of April. Hard to believe that 1/3 of this year is almost complete. Almost. We're not there yet, though. It's almost complete. Welcome, and hopefully we can generate some good conversation today about what's going out there in the marketplace. You know, it seems that when we talk about this stuff, it's like the same old thing going on, but yet a lot of the things are lingering around and causing big changes in the marketplace today and for the near future. So let's hear what's going on in your world out there, and we'll tell you kind of a little bit about what's going on in ours. And with that being said, Jim, I don't know if you want me to do it now, but thank our sponsors. We're currently working with Atlantic Steel Industries. They're one of our newest sponsors on stainless steel welded pipe. They're building a new mill in the Dominican Republic. If you have any need for that, feel free to reach out to us. And then, of course, Jane Chon Metals, JDM Steel, and Mangum Alloys. We're currently working with Atlantic Steel Industries. With that being said, let's get to the conversation. What do you think? How's things working out there, Jim?
Well, I just had, for some reason, the YouTube was a little slow. There's a little delay there, but it finally came on, and I'm still trying to hook up to the LinkedIn. It shows on the restream that it's going through, and there's sound coming for the YouTube, so it shows that it's streaming, but for some reason I can't log on to it, so I don't know why. But it does show. Actually, let me go. I know one. Let me just test another real quick thing here. But again, we're here to facilitate the conversation. Again, we're kind of the topics. It was interesting as you were talking about. It seems like a lot of the things are ongoing and don't change much. And I said, I think that's why when you do it on a week-to-week basis, a couple bucks here is like up, down, up $5, but then over a course of 12 weeks, that's $60, and you don't even know that it's up $60, so. Right.
Yep.
Sometimes the changes are small.
Gradual changes. And that's kind of what I was alluding to is that, they're still here. When you're talking about, when you're talking about ocean freight, the situation and all the different things with the Strait of Hormuz and all the different ones. You don't hear about the Houthis bombing ships through the other canal that they were doing. I can't remember the name of it now. The Suez Canal. Yeah, you don't hear much about that these days. I don't even know what's going on over there, but that was a factor, and now it's switched to another factor. So we're living this global world that we're in, and everything throughout the world affects everybody differently, but at one point in time, it affects you somehow.
At one point or another. So kind of what's happening this week is we've kind of got a period of high friction is what they're calling it, where the prices are climbing as distributors contend with depleted inventories and significant new trade restrictions. So we'll kind of cover a little bit of those. And then one of them I saw there that I was kind of unfamiliar with was the 132s and 131s or something like that. Section 1, instead of the 232s, it was 130 something or whatever. I saw that in the notes.
Yeah, I agree with you. I saw that in the notes as well, and I was not familiar with that one. It put a 10% tariff, and they were considering moving it to a 15% tariff.
Yeah, I wasn't going to go over the details yet. I wasn't going to quite go over the details yet, but
Yeah.
the overall what are kind of some notes there, but the kind of the way we kind of go over this is our CUR update, kind of go the prices for some of the products, and then we'll kind of go over. Today we're going to center a little more on our stainless and tubular PVF tubular products. Again, going back to what Scott had recognized, our new pipe mill coming up in the Dominican Republic. Trying to advertise that and talk about that product line a little bit more, understanding those markets. We've been in the business since 1981, and PVF products has been a big part of that over the years. Some years better, more than others, but we're wanting to get back in it bigger and bigger and better and better over the next couple of years. And then we also, the Service Center and Industrial Distributor Dynamics, talk a little bit about the lead times and some inventories and things like that. And then we'll get into the raw materials and upstream logistics. And then finally the regulatory barriers, which is where the 122 tariffs come into play.
Yeah.
So it's kind of where we're at on all that stuff. So let's see here. That's what you were mentioning, the kind of the consistency I saw in the hot rolled pricing and the Nucor consumer spot price, as we talked about that a little bit last week, the spot price versus contract pricing. But what was it? I think it says this week that it's up $10 a ton over the week. And I don't know, I think last week, it was right about the time the show was on, Nucor came out. I thought we were at 10.55 last week, so it's showing 10.55. But I think it went from 10.45 to 10.55 last week is where we're kind of at.
I would agree with that, yes. Mm-hmm. Right okay, there so in that area. Spot pricing.
And we talked a little bit, but we've heard it kind of leveling or, peaking, but yet it kind of inches up little by little every week still, but it hasn't peaked, right, or it's not leveling. It seems to still be kind of moving, which is good in an upward based market. Again, what are we at? We're at the end of the month. So they opened up June's book yet, or do you know, or I think we'll get to that in a little while.
I think they opened that up in, CRU pricing, updated CRU pricing. We work off the one that's announced every second Wednesday of the month. And that's when the pricing comes out that we work off of. I don't know what other people do, but it's spot pricing. That's kind of what we work off of. So, that will open up for June bookings. And when we say June bookings, kind of to your point that you were talking about, that's the spot market, which, the notes kind of indicated that, spot business is kind of hard to get into these days because there's they're concentrating on the contract business, and spot pricing is diminishing. I mean, spot availability is diminishing a little bit. It's still out there, but you got to get your orders in quick, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's what we've been seeing. I think with the tariffs we've had the 232s in place in the steel market for a while, so it's not a huge change. The aluminum's a little different, but the carbon flat rolls had the 232s for quite a long time, and so the market I think there's a couple of countries that a year or so ago got additional, plus there were some other additional countries that were excluded from the 232s, I think, and they were kind of added to the list. So again, the supply side of things coming into the United States market has been restricted a little bit, and kind of I'm not sure the distributors, not knowing whether the market's going to be strong or not, kind of still fighting that. They might have backed off on their orders a little bit, and not having the supply side to back it up when they needed it. You run into that problem of depleted inventories, which we kind of start to see. Then you start running into, if the customer needs it, you got to ship it.
Yeah, well, we also work off of the data that we secure, obviously, and I don't think that the numbers for April import tonnage have come out yet, obviously, because the month hasn't finished. But we did see, and I think the last conversation that we had was, March imports were down 15% from the previous month, imports into this country, which puts a heavier load onto the domestic mills, and that in turn is why the spot market is tightening up a little bit. Now, I don't know if things have opened up a little bit in April or not. I don't know what those numbers are, but we'll see that probably in the next episode. But um, rumors were having that there was a fair amount of orders that were put on the books, but I don't know. I can't. I haven't looked at the data on that, so we'll
Yeah,
see.
it changes week by week. Sometimes we see it, sometimes we don't.
Right,
Sometimes
right,
I feel like I see it, sometimes I don't.
yeah,
So anyway,
yeah,
it appears as far as the pricing goes, everything, the hot rolled, the cold rolled, the galvanized, and the spot pricing markets have all increased over the last period. So, we're seeing rising prices. Again, that has probably, because of the supply side being restricted a little bit more, you have the mills booking up, and when you see the mills book up, you see the prices rise.
right. And then you throw in some of the announced. I think there's a shutdown coming up. I think U.S. Steel has a shutdown coming up in the very near future, which is going to take some production out of the local market. I don't know the magnitude of that, but that's that'll tighten things up a little bit more on the domestic side of things. But yeah,
Yeah, a lot of that
it's
might be baked in too. You don't know if everybody knows that they can
right,
shift their purchases elsewhere on the contractual slash spot pricing markets, and that's one
right.
of the problems. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
slowly but surely. So anyway, by the way, too, I didn't think I mentioned at the beginning. In the YouTube and the LinkedIn channels, we are monitoring the chat in both of those. So if you have any comments or questions or any input, we'd love to hear from you. And just go ahead and type it on in there, and we'll get it up on the screen and see if we can talk about it a
Right,
little bit.
right. Yeah, if you have clarification on some of the stuff that we're questioning or don't know the answer to, and you have an answer, we'd love to hear it. That's what we're trying to facilitate here.
Facilitate a conversation.
Facilitation.
So, yeah, facilitation. So the tubular products around the world, it seems as if the seamless tube and pipe, India has exhausted its Q2 20, which we saw that last week. They've pretty much got their quotas complete. So that's putting a
Going in, their quotas going into the UK, right, or Europe, or isn't it the EU, or where
it
were
actually
those?
said Western markets, and I don't know if India's put in quotas on exporting of their product. But
Oh,
again, they've been the cheap. They've been the cheap. So it says the Western markets. Last week it was European
oh,
markets, but apparently they've expanded that a little bit to the Western markets, not
oh,
just the. Uh,
interesting.
which then what happens is distributors have to pivot to higher cost domestic material or non-traditional sources, which then you
Right.
become the non-traditional sources can be a cheaper source, but they might not be as quite as reliable, or deliveries then slip, and even that sometimes I've seen on the Indian markets, it's sometimes deliveries slip a little bit, some of their product lines.
Yes.
Again, moving things around, trying to become a burgeoning supplier of product to the global market, and they can enter all the markets at the same time. It becomes kind of stressful, I guess, moving your production around to accommodate where the orders are coming from and keep your prices competitive and yet
Especially,
still.
yeah. Especially when you run into some of the transportation issues and changes that are going on in that sector of the market, that becomes challenging.
Yeah, your costs and your timing and all that stuff do change. So you kind of have to watch
Right,
that as well.
right, right.
So the surcharges for nickel and alloy surcharges that are forecast for May of 2026 for 304, 316, they're expected to rise a little bit by 5.4% due to the rising energy costs in Europe and the fluctuating LME nickel prices. I haven't seen them.
Yeah, nickel prices shot up pretty heavy. I didn't see what they did this morning, but yesterday they were up quite high. I mean, I saw $19,400 a ton, I think it was, on the LME yesterday morning. And that was up from, I think, like 18.8. So, I mean, it took quite a shot up. Now, there's some things to watch there in that market as well. I know maize surcharges are, as you just indicated, anticipated to go up in the area of about 5%. But when they shoot up like that, who knows what June's going to do? So that's something to keep an eye on as well. That nickel pricing.
Is where we try to do that a little bit by little bit.
Yeah.
And sometimes those little changes can be. I guess that's that trend. Is it always up, or is it down, down, or is it bouncing around at that level? Just smooth waves
Right.
Going up and down. I
Yeah.
watched that over the years. If you don't watch it every day, too, sometimes you'll be like, whoa, it looks like it's changed.
Yes. Yeah.
Again, let's see what's going on there. So, at the service center level, there's a little inventory for sheet products anyway. It reached a 2.24 month average supply in March, which is the lowest level since June of 2021. So we're seeing a little inventory. Is that a reduction? I don't know if they're reducing or just supply, I should say. Inventory supply.
Yeah.
So the domestic.
Yeah, I think a lot of distributors, from what I've heard and read out there, a lot of distributors were holding off on making purchases with the anticipation that pricing was going to come down a little bit, and consequently, it's gone up and supply has tightened up. So low inventories with that other factor, the higher prices and tighter supply. It's not a great combination, but it'll all work out. Having to scramble a little bit more, I guess.
Well, the end users are one that kind of hurts eventually if it becomes really tight and then all the distributors raise their prices. Then what happens to that market?
Right.
Slows down the economy, depending on.
Yeah.
I guess that's why some people
make a living being economists, right?
Or at least they think they do.
Yeah. Trying to guess the future.
Yeah, as soon as that happens, they start buying, but their prices rise because they don't have the inventory, so the end user prices rises, and then that slows down their consumption, and then all the material starts to show up at the distributor warehouse, and the guys stop buying it because their end user market slowed down, and then you run into that cycle too. So I've seen that over the
balancing act. Yeah.
It's kind of that, and again, the old crystal ball. If somebody's got a crystal ball out there, share it with us. We'd be happy to.
We're still looking for that person out there. Whoever's got that clear crystal ball, and we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, we would. I've had a lot of those over the years.
I'm sure a lot of people would. Yeah. So
the spot market on lead times, again, I don't know what the lead times on hot rolled pickle and galvanized right now is mid-July, mid-2026, which is pretty good. What is that? What are we in? April, May, June, so 6 weeks. 6 weeks on hot rolled pickle and galvanized, and then cold rolled galvanized is an extra month on that, which is out a little further than it was last week. And the aluminized material they're currently quoting August 2026 on that. So, with the spot availability, major domestic mills like SDI have reportedly been pulling back from quoting near-term spot tons, focusing exclusively on contract fulfillment.
Right.
Good for them. Yeah.
Well, kind of goes along what we were saying earlier, right? I mean, they got to take care of the people with the contracts first. Contract,
but that's where you make your money is on the spot. But if you don't have any material to supply it, then get those contracts. Hopefully, you've made some money anyway, and you make it up in volume.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
It's some degree of. There was that capacity. If you're at capacity, you're covered. Your fixed costs are covered, so you can start those variable costs that decrease during that. So it becomes a little bit easier to swallow when you're the contract. So you've got your mill full of contract low price material, but you're covering your fixed costs there, which is good.
Yep.
Hopefully anyway.
That's what they're trying to do for sure. Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. So the iron ore rose 2.8% in April. The supply flow remains steady as China has released BHP's iron ore stockpiles at major ports this week. So apparently they've been holding it back. So that's kind of okay on the iron ore. But scrap prices have remained flat in April at $450 a ton. That's Chicago and Detroit anyway. and the zinc increased to $1.74, which included a 20-cent a pound producer premium. Adding direct cost pressure to galvanized and HD, hot dip products. So now we're finally down to this one.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say that's a market that we've certainly been surrounded by over the years, but never really participated in it too much, is the galvanized business, but it's a big market.
A lot of material flowing through there, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. So under the section 122, a 10%. So I don't know what the 122 specifically are. What the difference between a 122, 320, the 300 or 100 series tariffs. I'm not sure. I probably should look into that a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. The main ones that we've seen are the 301s and the 232s. That 122 is a new one to me. I'm going to have to look into that, like you said. I'm going to educate myself on that one.
Let's see, domestic broadcast, controlled high plateau for domestic pricing. And then, so there's now new federal guidelines for transportation side of things and logistics, the CDL regulations. So they're prohibiting citizens from Canada and Mexico from holding commercial driver's license without permanent residency or U.S. citizenship, which is expected to exacerbate driver shortages and increase freight costs for cross-border pipe and steel shipments. Okay. And the import products.
So is that saying people that are, to get a driver's license in the United States, you have to be a citizen
or permanent resident?
Permanent resident. Oh, okay.
Not an alien here, visa, traveling here.
Yeah.
So again, I guess they're trying to use U.S. citizens for the transportation. But again, how much material you're bringing in? We don't have the NAFTA anymore, but I don't know if there's trade deals on all that stuff that excludes it from the 232s when you're talking about Canada and Mexico. I know they did the 232s with aluminum from Canada, right?
Well, it wasn't the 232s, I don't think. The 232s exist. Yes, they do. Yes, and those, I think you were talking about it earlier. Some countries were omitted from the original tariffs, but yet in the beginning of the current administration's term, they made that 232 apply to everybody. There were no exclusions, and I think Canada and Mexico were two of the main ones that got hit with that. That's really what caused the beginning of a big hiccup in the aluminum market, because I know Canada was a big supplier of aluminum to the United States. I don't know what's settled down on that right now, but yeah.
Yeah, I thought they went up, took those tariffs. They already had some tariffs on that aluminum, but it went up quite a bit on the Canadian when they originally did that. Was that from the different?
I think they were omitted. I don't know the details. I can't. I would be guessing on giving some specifics on that, but I don't know the exact numbers. But
and that could have been the ones that Trump did from the executive branch.
At one point they were lower, and they rose up to whatever level. Yeah.
Rising market, rising tide. Floats more boats, whatever they say. You bet. So anyway, kind of a summary.
I was going to say there's a lot of balls up in the air in a lot of different aspects of the market. That being one of them.
And that's a constant thing that happens. That's why we sit and talk about it here each week, and love to get an interactive conversation going in the marketplace here.
Right.
The final part about this is a summary for distributors. It's kind of interesting that the market has been characterized by having a supply ceiling. That's interesting because I don't know what the global supply is, but the domestic market, U.S. market has, because of the tariffs, the supply is kind of down to a point where you only have so much supply that can get into the market. And we've seen that by talking about it here today, but So with the imports that are limited by quotas in domestic mills, which are undergoing significant maintenance outages, pricing power remains firmly with the producers. Would you see that as a seller's market right now on that side? So distributors have been advised to secure Q3 requirements now, as lead times for galvanized and cold rolled products continue to push into August. So January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. So your Q3 material, you're already in halfway through Q3, I guess, huh?
Yeah.
In shipments, and you're in order delivery, expected deliveries. So if you have some open tonnage that you need, suggested you probably get it, even though it might feel like a high price to you. That's the problem. By then, it could be a high price too.
It could be. I mean, you never know. I mean, that's it can drop out real fast. Prices can drop real fast, but you got to have material. You just hope you don't get stuck with a lot of high-priced inventory. But that's the challenge that those purchasing folks out there in the world have to deal with.
Amen to that. That's why we're here to try to help them get it out there. So anyway, that's kind of all we got here. Let's see. One of the things for upcoming events here, we have we've talked about last week. We talked about moving it to Friday, and for some reason I didn't get next week. I think, are we still on schedule for next week? Or is next week when you're going to be gone? Next 2 weeks?
I'm going to certainly be gone this Friday. The following Friday I'll be in, and then the third Friday of May, which is the Memorial Day weekend, I believe it is. I think we'll be gone. No, can't remember what it is.
It's the 17th and 18th, isn't it? You're going to be gone?
I will be gone I will be gone the 17th and the 18th. I'll be here the 10th.
Yeah, that's a Sunday, the 10th. But yeah, so we probably, which is next week. That's the next week. We could still do Wednesday. Let me see. We could still do that Wednesday of next week, I guess.
Well, we had kind of talked about holding off on doing this until starting in June. Is that what we? I kind of off the air we were talking about it, but I don't remember what we.
No, actually, we decided to do it that Memorial Day weekend. That's that Memorial Day weekend, that Friday, because everybody's gonna. So So I guess that'll be our next event, which is Friday, May 29th.
Right.
So we'll start Friday, May 29th with our next event. So we'll start promoting that a little earlier, hopefully, because we'll have a little time, so everybody can kind of register for it. We'll get it out there. So I guess our next event. So if you have any questions in the meantime, my email is jimglenn@steelrep.com. JIMGLENN @steelrep.com. STEELREP. And Scott, yours is the same. Scott Glenn with 2 T's on the Glenn and the Scott. And at steelrep.com. LinkedIn, I'm
2
Jim
T's
Glenn,
on the Scott and 2 N's on the Glenn. Yep. 2 T's, 2 N's at steelrep.com. Scott Glenn at steelrep.com. All one word.
Yeah, reach out to us. And if you have any questions or comments or any suggestions, we're here to listen. And in the meantime, you got anything else you want to share with us or take care of right now?
No, I mean, the only thing that I would add real quick at the end here
Sure.
is if anybody would like to be a guest on our show and has a topic or a sector of the market that they would like to discuss on the show, we'd welcome the opportunity to get you on here and kind of do a special podcast with you on there, and open it up for people for questions. But if you have any interest in that, let us know.
If you're a mill from a producing mill of some type, or tier 1, tier 2 producer, we're not going to do necessarily, we don't really want to do an advertisement for your particular mill, but that product line, that market, that market, that product line, we'd certainly like to interview and kind of go over what you see in the marketplace. And at that point in time, of course, your brand name will be mentioned throughout the show. But we're going to talk about, for example, stainless steel bar or something, or something like that. We'd love to have you on to talk about that. Right. Mills, service centers, same thing. If you're a service center and want to talk about if you're regional, local, or even a national, international service center and you want to talk about the service center sector or industrial distributor sector, we're here to do that. And end users, how does nickel pricing affect you if you're a stainless consumer, at the end user level? How do you see the marketplace? And additionally, if you're a broker slash importer slash logistics person and you want to talk about ocean freight from China and India and around the world, how the Straits of Hormuz and the Suez Canal are affecting pricing and deliveries, those are the kind of things Scott's talking about there.
Right, exactly. Good summary there. Yeah. Reach out to us. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And that's all I had to really add. Other than that, thank you all for joining us. Let us know if we can do anything for you.
Exactly. Thank you very much, and good to see you. And we'll talk to you at the end of the month.
All right. Take care, Jim.
You too now. Bye-bye.